Welcome into the GC Live postgame show. It has been quite some time, but I'm off today up in Rhode Island. And with the way South Carolina performed today, it felt like it was only right to come back on and do a GC Live postgame show, and doing it from the goodness of their hearts. Here are former Gamecocks, two that you know very well from their times of hopping on with us in the past on GC Live. Garrett Anderson, as well as Michael Scarnecchia. Boys, it is good to see you. It's been a while, as I told you, before we hopped right on, so it's always good to see you guys. And it's going to be good to hear from so many Gamecock fans, as we already have hundreds starting to pour in as we're just 30 seconds into this broadcast. So it always is good to connect with you guys. And, boy, what a day to talk about the Gamecocks with the way last week's game was, and then the fact that you knew on the opposite side of this, and I'm sure there'll be some things that we can talk about that South Carolina still needs to improve on, heading into a bye week next week. If they had lost back-to-back games after the way that they started the year and some of those games, again, the LSU game, the Alabama game, and you head into the bye week next week, I can't even imagine what that feeling would have been like for this team, sitting around just like, man, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure some of them will still think of stuff like that. But you head into this now 4-3. You're feeling really good about yourself in some areas, and there's some areas you want to improve on certainly as well. I don't know who wants to lead off. I'll let either of you.
Go ahead, man.
I got you. Yeah, listen, we all knew going to this game, it was a very important game, especially for them to make a bowl game this season, because our road ahead is going to be a difficult one. All the SEC opponents that we have are playing very well, and we knew that if we're going to buy a win, we need to buy a win early, because these teams are going to be difficult that we're facing going forward. And, you know, Mike, Oklahoma was weak on the offense. They're depleted at offense, or they're depleted at receiver. Their QB play is in flux, and our defense is playing lights out this season. And so I thought right now going into Norman, this was probably one of our best chances to go in there, put a stamp on our defensive play, and allow our offense to have a good, consistent game to go forward. And that's exactly what we did. You know, positive-wise, I think we can all agree the defense played arguably one of the best performances we've seen from a defense in years. Offensively, there's things we can improve on. But, you know, it's a lot easier to go back and look at film off a win than it is a loss.
I'm still trying to find the time of possession, because I feel like that's a big one to it. But
I got you, Garrett. Garrett, time of possession, South Carolina had the ball, and I'm just going to round up here. They had the ball for 32 minutes, and Oklahoma had the ball for 28.
It felt different than that, you know.
But a lot of that had to do with the fact of the fact that South Carolina was turning defense into offense early on. First 3 possessions, they forced 3 turnovers. 2 of them went for defensive touchdowns. But I hear what you're saying, though.
But it feels like because Oklahoma has been so scared on defense, and because our defense are on offense, and our defense came out so aggressively, it just seemed. I mean, they gave a good second half attempt, but I mean, when you put your foot on their neck that early, they just kind of fold. But I was looking at Oklahoma's schedule going forward, and you're kind of thinking and realizing that, like, but one, the SEC is a nightmare right now. But looking forward at Oklahoma's schedule too, you know, for both of us, this is a must win. And, you know, I'm glad we played the way we did, but you look at the rest of Oklahoma's schedule, same with ours. I mean, it's just navigating the SEC schedules is a nightmare right now. So this was a must win, just doesn't feel strong enough of a phrase, you know?
So looking at some of the stats today, and especially the first half with the way South Carolina was playing, I thought they did a better job at least protecting up front. Was things perfect? Certainly not. But and there's plenty of talk about from the offensive side. The defense, they did their job. They had a couple breakdowns here and there, but, you know, all in all, they did what they were supposed to do. They gave you a chance. I felt like in the first half, outside of limiting the number of sacks, and, you know, they gave some sacks in the second half, they limited the penalties, at least the dumb ones. There's going to be penalties here and there. It just happened, right? But it was just the stupid things, the little things that have really bothered me, and I'm sure it's bothered most people about this team. The other thing, too, for the first time all season, how about this? First time all season, they didn't turn the ball over. Didn't turn the ball over today. That has been an issue for this team. A couple stats that you never want to be towards the bottom of heading into this game. South Carolina entered today last in the country in fumbles lost. They came into this game last in the country in sacks allowed. And they came into this game, I believe it was like 13th worst in the country for penalties. So I bring those things up to say, you know, certainly I think there were 6 sacks they allowed today because, again, second half, Oklahoma got after him a little bit. But they cleaned up some areas. Offensively, though, and I know this is a day where we want to talk about the defense. I get that. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to be negative Nancy, whatever other lines you want to throw in there. What did you make of this offense? Because that's the thing. Like heading into this bye week, let's call it for what it is. If the defense doesn't go out there and play the way that they did today, who knows how close this game would have been.
I mean, theoretically speaking, we won't know, and I mean, there's very few people in the world that know. But looking at the stark difference from the Ole Miss game going to the Alabama game and then this game, I mean, clearly there's some kind of shift in the ideology of what we're doing in the play calling. Now, granted, is someone else calling the plays or is someone else helping with game plan? There's a lot of different layers to that. But I mean, there's clearly a difference. But I do agree, and I kind of said this about the Alabama game, and I feel like it especially the Oklahoma game as well. It feels kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Like sometimes we're playing to win, and sometimes we're playing to not lose. And it doesn't seem like it kind of wanes. It seems like there's one person, or not one person, but there's a certain idea what we're going for. We're throwing the ball deep. We're calling bold plays, and the other times we're just running QB sweep on 3rd and 8. I don't know what the shift is there, but we got the tools and everything's coming together, and Nick Harbour is really starting to produce too. We gotta put people down, especially with this defense the way they are.
Yeah, I agree with Garrett. That in the first half specifically, we've seen, especially this season. I mean, just look at the Alabama-Georgia game where a team's up significantly going into half, the other team's able to come back. That very well could have happened in the first half. It almost, and I see Travis Edwards, what he's saying in the comments, and I completely agree. We all knew going in, Oklahoma's defense is elite. That doesn't mean we can't beat them, and that doesn't mean we can't create opportunities to go down the field and drive on them. So I say that because in the first couple of drives, once we were able to get up 3 scores, it looked like on those 3rd downs, 3rd and mediums, 3rd and longs, we did some option plays, some handoffs. It looked like we were just trying to not create turnovers for them or not turn the ball over and put them in a deep spot where our defense could go out there and play and rely on our defense. And it seemed like that was the game plan going forward the rest of the game is let's just rely on our defense and not put them in a position where we could lose this game. Mm-hmm. And I think in the first half, you can't do that against a good opponent. You have to continually put your foot on their throat and just keep driving and create opportunities for the players you have, because we have skilled players who have the abilities to go out there and make plays. We've seen it. We've faced great teams this season already. In the second half, it's a different story from a coaching perspective. You can change the how aggressive you are because you have more leeway. There's less time for the team to come back, and it's just more of a game planning thing at that point. But early on in the game, I didn't like seeing how kind of passive we seemed to be on the 3rd down calls. I don't know if you guys agree with that. That's just kind of my perspective.
I will say this, and then I'll let you guys kind of pick up on that, because again, as good as the defense was today, it's hard not to talk about the offense simply because, look, we're going to be heading into the bye week. And like I mentioned before, if the defense doesn't go out there, force 3 turnovers, and give a lot of credit to Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, especially those first 3 series of the game. Tennessee. Huh. The games are getting ready. See, you can tell my head's all over the place here. The tight ends. I had the TE right. I had the T again. The point where I'm going is Oklahoma tried to block the edges with their tight ends early in the game.
Yeah.
And not only did I think that was comical, I thought it was straight up just disrespectful. And Kennard was ragdolling guys. Stewart was running by guys. And that led to 3 turnovers, two interceptions. Obviously, 2 of them went back for touchdowns. So, again, the defense, they did their job today. Offensively, though, and this is something that I've paid attention to. Mike, I know we talked about a mix in a water not too long ago, and I've been just paying attention to the offense as a whole, and maybe this is just me. I feel like throughout the majority of the season, and we saw it shift at least at the beginning of the game when things were going right, a lot of the plays that are issues for South Carolina, it just feels like they're trying to do more long developing plays. It just takes a while for them to get open. We saw, for example, Mazio Bennett right before the half against Alabama. Mm-hmm. It was an out and up route. That play is going to take some time to develop. And if it's open, Sellers is going to hit that if he gets the protection. I just feel like the issue with South Carolina this year has been because of the issues, whether it be from a pass protection standpoint or what, the timing's all out of whack. So because of that, those long developing plays, it's just not going to happen. Sellers is running around. Obviously, the fumbles have happened this season. He was great today with protecting it. But I feel like today, what we saw, at least for a period of time, and I don't know why we didn't continue to go back to it, the ball was coming out of the hands quickly. Mike, you talked about it. It's just like, hey, the quick game, maybe not necessarily that, but get Sellers comfortable with doing the things that he likes to do. And it felt like for at least periods of time in this game today, they were able to do it, but it just they weren't consistent with it offensively.
Yeah. We've said this, I think, for years now about how, like, especially when you have a young QB, those short plays, those RPOs, getting the ball out of their hands quickly and not forcing them to have to go through a bunch of reads is always a good thing, especially when you're trying to develop the confidence of a QB and want him to be able to get comfortable in the game. And so, I love seeing that kind of thing. When we started doing it in the Oklahoma game, is those short developing plays, one read style, give him comfortable, because it's also another way to just stretch the field. And right now, Oklahoma was, a lot of times it seemed like they were collapsed in the box and we weren't able to run the ball very effectively. I mean, if you just look at our run stats, we had a total of, rushing, we had a total of 61 yards. So it's not that we had a very effective, and I think Oklahoma's defense was number 5 in the nation for rushing defense. So they were a very difficult team to rush against. So stretching the field with short RPO style, quick outs, things like that. Good way to get comfortable, good way to just kind of get some extra yards and stretch the field. And I think that's one way that we need to continue to develop and continue going forward, is doing that, because it also sets up those deep, long plays that we were just talking about, the out and ups.
Yeah.
Teams start playing up, and it gives the opportunity to do those out and ups because they're going to bite on those moves. And so, that's just a methodical thing. Coach, offensive coordinator is always trying to do. You're trying to outplay the defense and outsmart them. And so, I think one thing that we've seen this year so far is just an inconsistency with aggressiveness. Sometimes we seem more aggressive in some games and we're going down and we have the athletes to do it. In some games we look like we're just not taking any shots. For instance, the Ole Miss game, it looked like we took no shots, but then come Alabama, we took shots. And I like to see the mixture of what Loggins does with both those short game, quick outs, one read, and then take the shots, because it's just a good way to mix up and get those explosive plays for our offense.
Well, and that's the one thing I don't feel like I've been seeing as consistently, and it kind of goes back and forth, is, that's kind of what you do. And the reason how you kind of have a script and a game plan going into a game is, what are you setting up in the first half to take advantage of in the second half? What are you doing to figure out in the first half to make adjustments going into the second half? And I felt like, especially with this game, we didn't really, like, Oklahoma had really, really good adjustments to what they're doing second half. And that's why things kind of got a little bit weird. But, I just feel like we're not really getting really good second half adjustments that we're taking advantage of. It kind of feels like, especially this game, kind of like flying by the seat of our pants with a couple things. And someone mentioned the third and long tight end screens. I was watching Sean yell at somebody about, who knows what, but clearly he's got some kind of play in, what we're calling and what we're doing there. But clearly there's a game plan as to what we're trying to get done there. But as a team, either it's not working or it's not effective.
Yeah, and again, the reason why I want to harp so much on the offense is, and I know this might sound like a really dumb statement, but it feels like this team, from a defensive standpoint, this is a top 15 team in the country. And then you look at the offense, and it's just like, it gets carried along a little bit at times. Now, there's been some good things. Sellers did some good things today. There were some good things. Josh Simon did some good things today. I haven't gone back and obviously watched the tape yet. I usually do that Saturday night, and I'll put my 10 takeaways up Sunday morning. But I think what's frustrating is, and I made this comparison before, at times it's like watching friggin' the Mud Dogs out there. It's like, if a team just goes out there and takes a knee because they got Bobby Boucher out there and, we're not worried about the offense. At some point, you're going to have to step up. And we've seen it this season, right? You go back to the LSU game. Now, I give LSU a lot of credit. I know people want to talk about the penalties. I get that. But put that aside. Defensively, what happened that was different in the second half? LSU started to come out with the quick game. That's how you beat USC. You get the ball out quick, you eliminate their pass rush, and you force them to make tackles in space. And they struggled to do that game. Oklahoma, one of the worst pass blocking teams in the country, that showed today. But just the fact that you were able to score so many points early on defensively, you went up 21-0. And as you guys said, they started to play a little conservatively, right? Maybe they took their foot off the pedal a little bit from an offensive standpoint. Defensively, they kept coming at them. But it's something I think it's fair to bring up after today. And it's certainly going to be something to look at heading into the bye week, because I know people are going to ask, does any changes need to happen? And we've said this for a while now. Beamer's not the type of guy that likes to make or even thinks about the idea of really making changes in season. But I can tell you, going back to 2 weeks ago, that after what game was it? The Ole Miss game, the word that I got was Beamer was as pissed off as he's been after a game in his staff meeting than he's been in quite some time. And I don't have verbatim of exactly what was said. I was relayed some things. I haven't confirmed it. But he was basically like, this stuff's not happening again. Like, this stuff is going to stop. So I say that today, and I don't want to say, okay, is anyone's job on the line? But it will be interesting to see what happens during this bye week. Because I get it. You're always evaluating your coaches all the time. And this period of time, even though South Carolina won by a lot today, if you're Beamer, do you feel good? Do you feel better about the direction of where the offense is headed in after having that first bye and after these couple games since that first bye, heading into the second bye now in comparison of what you felt like a couple weeks ago? I think that's the big question. It's not just what they did today. It's over the last 3 games since that first bye week, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, someone mentioned this. I think it was the Tuesday Shane Beamer press conference. They're talking about how, even my wife said it today, Shane looks pissed and angry and hungry. I think if you look at Shane from year one versus Shane now, and just in terms of the demeanor, and I can say it from going to practices. I remember the first couple of years watching Shane's practices, and there wasn't a cuss word, there wasn't anything violent or aggressive, and now it's just different. And I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I think that as a head coach, you probably have a lot of ideas and aspirations of things you want to do going into a program, and then reality hits and you realize maybe things aren't going to go the way you want to, and you evolve. I think he is evolving, and I know he doesn't want to make rash decisions, but I think he's realizing that sometimes you have an offense coordinator that you need to just get rid of. And I mean, I've heard over and over again that Satterfield was still the one calling plays, but if you watch the film before the Tennessee, Clemson, Notre Dame games, the offensive plays are night and day different. Whether Satterfield's the one calling in the plays or not, something's changing behind the scenes. And I think Shane saw that, and I think he's doing something now that he's changing the way they're doing stuff. Now, I mean, you have the Akron game, whatever, LSU, and then Ole Miss, Alabama, and today. I think there are spots that we really like. I'm hoping that during the bye week they figure out what they're good at, and then someone who is competent starts really, really changing, whether the calls are there or not, but the overall game plan is what we're starting with and what we're ending with.
Yeah. Because how frustrating is that? Because, look, and you guys aren't playing anymore, so you guys can come out and call a spade now. How frustrating is it when you're on one side of the ball, right? Let's say the offense is doing their job, but the defense just cannot stop a nosebleed. And then vice versa, right? The defense is going out there getting stop after stop after stop. And obviously at some point, they're going to give up some points. It's the name of the game, especially the way it's played today. I know you guys won't say this, but as a former defensive guy, I mean, they're freaking tying our hands behind our backs here with some of these rules. So at some point, you're going to give up some points. So at some point, like, I get it. They're going to say everything right when they're in front of the podium, but I can't imagine that heading into this bye week, the defense isn't just, looking at each other like, man, like, what more do we need to do from the offense to step up? And I saw this comment, and you guys can disagree with me or, just weigh in. My take on it, Michael, you say the guys on offense, the offense sucks and it ain't the players. I've said this multiple times today, and I'll have to go back and watch this film because, again, I like to go back and watch it. I don't, you can see some stuff in real time, but I like to go back, especially with the blocking assignments. The execution has not been great this year, but having said that, because of the lack of adjustments and the lack of putting the offense in a better situation to succeed, we're talking about the long developing plays. Man, okay, the blocking's not up front. The blocking's not there. Why are you going to continue to do long developing plays? Get the ball out quicker. That's on you as a coaching staff. So if the execution's not there, the coaches have to make adjustments. So I know it's, it might seem like a cop-out answer, but it's not just one person. I think some of it goes back on the players. But again, the coaches have to look at, okay, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And it's not just Lenore Sellers. It's everyone on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, just even going back, like we said, to the Ole Miss game, when I was watching in person, some of the sacks that were being taken by Lenoris, again, they were his fault. He probably should have got the ball out, no step in the pocket. But a lot of times I was looking downfield and these receivers were getting no separation. And so if you're an offensive coordinator and you're seeing that your receivers right now aren't getting any separation from the DBs against a good defense, one, there's two things. That either means your receivers just aren't good enough right now to win the one-on-one battles, or two, you're scheming them up in a position. Your scheme isn't putting them in a position where they can't win and succeed in those routes. And I kind of think it's towards the latter. I think we have good skill players. Do we have elite players like we had in the past? In some positions, but in some positions we don't. And so I think it comes down to scheme and setting those players up into a position where they can get open. And that comes down to offensive scheme. We've seen it before. Going back even to 2015, 2014, when we had receivers out there who, I think one time we were filling the whole field with walk-ons, and we were still being able to drive the ball down the field because Spurrier was able to call plays, and G.A. Mangus, if you're a good offensive coordinator, you can get your players open with offensive schematics. That's what I'm going to say. And I think we can do that with the team we have now. We just need to see it more consistently going forward. And right now, it doesn't seem like we're putting our players in a position to succeed, specifically our receivers, because it looks like they're not winning a lot of one-on-one battles, and we got to find ways to get them open because it's going to help Norris.
Yeah, I mean, that's a scheming thing. And you're right. I mean, I don't really know the amount of times we're trying to win matchups with freshmen. I mean, the fact that Mazur Ben has to really step up. We're kind of working with a couple weird spots, and I always think about, if you've got young guys that are having to produce, what are the older guys doing? You know what I mean? I mean, and to add to someone else's comment in there talking about potentially wasting an elite defense. What?
We're just laughing at the comments there.
Carolina Titan, it's all good.
We get mistaken as brothers all the time.
Real quick story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It drove Perry nuts because it was shortly after, maybe like a couple months after his final year when Jake Bentley came in, and I think someone saw him out. I remember there was an event, and he's like, "Hey Jake, what's up?" And he just looked like, "I'm not Jake. I'm Perry Orth." But Carolina Titans said what Perry just said. He's like, "Oops, Michael. Sorry, Mike." Hey, we can all laugh. Hey, we can laugh at these things today. This is more enjoyable when you have a when you have a win like this. I don't know if we just lost Garrett. Garrett might be getting a phone call or something over there. Screen's all black completely.
I want to just talk about this too. I don't know if we can. I'm going to talk about it regardless. Ray Tanner just got moved to a different position. We have a new AD that's going to be coming in.
Correct.
Will this new AD coming in and our board look at what's going on offensively in our football program and put their hand in it? Are they going to say, hey, we want this university to take a step forward, Coach Beamer? We're not there right now with, it's just speculation. This is all speculation.
Well,
I just want to put this conversation out there because what is this new AD? He's going to come in here, or he or she's going to come in and say,
and
I will get a name for myself. How am I going to do that?
And it's similar to like when a new head coach comes in, right? And you went through that change. You were recruited by Steve Spurrier. You played for him. And then, of course, you finished your career playing for Will Muschamp. I bring that up because I went through a coaching change myself. My head coach is at James Madison. Shout out to Bobby Chesney and the job he's doing for the Dukes. When you have a new coach that comes in, it's not that he doesn't care about you, but you're not his guy. You're not his guy. So similar to that of any job in life, right? Any job. But like an athletic director that comes in, they look at it, hey, guess what? Shane, you're not our guy. We didn't hire you. So if we're looking at you and we're making suggestions behind the scene or the board of trustees where we know they like to talk. They like to talk behind the scenes a good bit. I mean, it's no secret. It happens everywhere. But like you mentioned, how long does that go on until, and I kind of compare it to chess, Mike, right? You got to protect yourself. At some point, you have to protect yourself because if you don't, you're going to be the one that goes down. Mm-hmm. So that's not to say, okay, you know what? They'll make a move with Dal Loggins next week. But again, I can tell you 2 weeks ago, those are the conversations that were going on. That's why I'm bringing this up so much, because heading into this bye week, even though Shane is the type of guy that does not want to make a change based on what we've seen in his track record over the last couple of years. He also has to be looking at this saying, man, our defense is doing such a good job, though, in our offense. I feel like we can get over that hump, but for whatever reason, we're not.
Well, we can't. Let's think about this. Last season, everyone was calling for Coach White's name and they're saying, get him out of here. He's not the defensive coordinator of the future. And the last couple of games of the season, we saw progress in our defensive productivity, their efficiency, how well they're playing in those final 3 to 4 games. And so, these coaches, they're smart, they're educated, they have the ability, they can turn it around. It's just, are they going to? Because this season, after Clayton Whitewood, he had the lack of production early on in this last season. We come around this season, he's having one of the best defensive productions in all of NCAA or all of D1. So Loggins has the capability and he has the tools. It's just, is he going to make those necessary adjustments and not be hard-headed about what his scheme is and realize I have to adjust it to what I have right now on my offense? And he always can. He can. I mean, we've seen it in different games, like one-off games, whether he's calling the players or not. Let's just assume he is the one that's been calling plays since last season consistently. He has shown that he can he can call the games correctly. It's just the lack of consistency that I think Gamecock fans are getting frustrated with, because while our defense is playing so well, and it's almost like you hate taking the defense for granted, because coming by a really, really good defense seems to be an anomaly nowadays. It comes once in a lifetime, it feels like. And when you don't want to waste that opportunity when you have a good defense by having a bad offense. So, I think he's going to have to look in the mirror this bye week, find ways to adjust his schematics and go forward with A&M, correct? I think A&M's our next opponent at home.
Yeah, so they're gonna head into the bye week here. I'm gonna pull up the schedule right now so we have everything correct. Got a couple things popped up on my screen right now, looking at some other games, some stats as well. But yeah, South Carolina will head into this bye week, and I mentioned this before the season. I know every team in the country has 2 byes this year. Okay, with the new format for the college football playoff. So during the regular season, now every team's gonna have 2 byes. But for a team that is so young on offense / has so many new faces because of players from the transfer portal, I felt like for South Carolina, it was going to be more beneficial for them in comparison to any team in the country. Because as we saw early on in the season, there were things that they're still learning. Now, having said that, though, you have to go out there and you have to be able to execute better. Mm-hmm. Now, there's been things that they have done better, I feel like, in comparison to, say, week 1, week 2, week 3, whatever the case may be. Like, there are things that they are doing better. I know that it might not seem that way at times, but there's just little things. I mentioned this I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Scar, Garrett. I don't know if I talked to you. I talked to Perry Orth about this, Stephen Garcia, and some other guys about this. I thought some of the blocking against Old Dominion was some of the worst. And I called out some of the guys because, like I've talked about, we're in this world of NIL. It's okay to take the friggin' kitty gloves off, and it's okay to hold players accountable. There's a difference between just absolutely just being an absolute tool and a D-bag, by calling out some guys. But it's okay to take the kitty gloves off and call a spade a spade. That's why I'm saying, and I get it. That's not to say I'm defending the coaches completely, but it feels like some people, they don't want to blame any of it's not the players, it's the coaches. Well, who's the one that is coaching them up? You still got to go out there and execute. If you could have friggin' Bear Bryant out there for crying out loud. Goodness, you still have to go out there and execute. So I think with South Carolina right now, as we look at the schedule, you got A&M after this week. Okay. Then you have to go at Vanderbilt. And I know this sounds crazy to say, but that's
absurd.
That's not a layup. Then you got to play Missouri, who's just been has been an absolute thorn in South Carolina's backside for the last couple of years.
Yeah, since 2018.
You play, that's right, 18. Scarnecchia, the Scar game, the monsoon. Then you play Wofford at home. Should be able to beat Wofford. And then you finish the year at Clemson. So you got 5 games left. And I know some people want to look more, not, hey, more than 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. I get all that. I said before the season, and I'm gonna be consistent with it. Making a bowl game with how young this team was and how young this team is, I think would be it would show that they're still heading in the right direction. I feel like they're heading in the right direction. But you look at some of those games, if I told you before the season, hey, South Carolina has 4 wins heading into the second bye, and they got to play Wofford and Vandy still, you probably would be like friggin' taking your pants off, friggin' woo! No, Vandy's not a layup anymore. So I still think they should be able to beat them. But as we've seen this year with every team, I mean, it truly is football. Like, any given Saturday, no game is a layup anymore. And I truly believe this with South Carolina. And Garrett, I'll let you, say anything you want, whether it be about what I'm saying here or anything else that I just said. I look at South Carolina's schedule, and I could see South Carolina winning these next 5 games. I really can. I can also look at South Carolina losing at least 4 of these games. Because, again, the Wofford game should be a layup. So, no disrespect to you Terrier fans out there. I know there's some Terrier/Gamecock fans out there listening, being like, man, what you making fun of my Terriers, Mike? But it's because if this offense can just get some things going, I feel like they can play with anybody. They did that at times with Alabama. They were able to get the ball going. But it just wasn't enough because of just how poorly they played early in that game for the majority of the first half. And then obviously at times with that hold penalty will drive me nuts. The hold that's set up for the 50-something yard field goal against Bama. But I'm trying to move on from that play.
I mean, that was one thing I remember saying preseason. I had a lot of people ask me what I thought the record was going to be, and I said, I'm hoping for 4 to 5 wins. And they were like, why are you so down on the team? And I said, it has nothing to do with this team. It has everything to do with the conference we're playing in. I mean, we're facing. If you look at the amount of teams on our roster who have the talent and the expectations to go and be in the playoffs or in the running for the national championship. I mean, it's more that if we were in the ACC, we'd be a 10, 11 win team in a heartbeat. You look at a lot of the teams that are ranked right now that are outside of the SEC or the Big Ten, and it's because they're playing nobody. All the good teams are now in our conference. And this is the whole, the age-old adage of the SEC is that it's not about what your record is, who you beat. It's the fact you have to play all of them. If all we had to face was Clemson and Miami, we'd be a hell of a healthy team. We still have the Kentucky, LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, and now Oklahoma game. And again, no one's crap on Oklahoma, and I think a lot of us in this chat so far, you've got a mix of guys. We just won 35-9. This is a good day. No one's saying it's a bad day. But this is a really, really good defense we have. And if the offense can just get something consistent, we don't need 600 yards of offense, but we can't put our defense in a position to where they start to falter or they have to overexert. If we go into the A&M game next week and we squeeze one out, but it's one of those situations where, knock on wood, a couple of defensive linemen get hurt or whatever, that screws us versus Vandy, Missouri. And therefore you might get to go bowling because of a situation like that, And to be honest with you, the Vandy matchup is going to be so interesting because, that's Pavia. That's that kid from New Mexico State. And their head coach from last year came over there as an analyst. A lot of their strength is coming from what they can do on offense. But I think we match up well. But you can't go A&M, Vandy, and then Missouri and hope to squeeze that one out because I think that's home, right? The Missouri game?
Correct.
So, I mean, all that to say, I mean, today was a great win, but the schedule sucks. There's no other way to put it.
We're going to get the final thoughts. I'm going to start really pushing this out there. We need Michael Scarnecchia to be the guest starter for the Mizzou game. I'm going to push that out there. I'm going to do whatever I can. Yeah. We need Scar coming out of the little choo-choo train, getting the people going. Real quickly, okay, I got a comment yesterday because I put a couple comments out, and we're going to wrap things up. We're doing a short one because, we haven't done one of these in a while, and I was off today, and appreciate these guys hopping on last minute. Two quick comments. I shared this during the game. 2 comments I got earlier in the week that made me feel like South Carolina was going to go out there and play well today. I spoke with a Gamecock player earlier this week, and when I asked them about how the week had gone preparation-wise and how they were feeling heading into the game, his exact words were, "We're going to kick their ass, just watch." Well, they did exactly that. As this fly is just flying over my head. And this last thing too, okay? And I want to give a shout out to the scout team. I feel like a friggin' coach saying that. This was a text. This was another comment I got from them. The scout team scored more in practice on our defense this week than what Oklahoma did today. So I bring that up. And that's not like a shot at Oklahoma's offense. People will probably look at it that way. Hey, gave a good look. Final thoughts from both of you guys.
I'll go. I think we consistently have said this the whole entire season. Our defense is going to keep us in games. They're going to make plays. I think we're leading the SEC or one of the top teams in the SEC in turnovers. from a defensive perspective. So they're going to keep us in games. Again, it's always going to come down to whether our offense can produce or not, and produce the entire 4 quarters. We've seen it to where our offense will produce for a half, come out the second half and fall flat, or vice versa. It's just, I think we all want to see more consistency from our offense. Another thing is, I think we need to get Rocket back going. Rocket, for the past couple of games, I think he's had some good games, but not games that he had early on in the season where he was pumping up those numbers to 80, 100 yards rushing games. And we need to continually get him going fully in those games. And so I think we all can agree defense is going to be the key factor in these final, what was it, 5 games. They're going to be the key factor in these games, or these remaining games we have. If our offense can play consistently each game going forward, when we have good offensive production coming out, I think we really do have a chance to win all these, like you said. Starting with A&M, they have a young QB starting, or did they go back to the other kid? I can't remember who they're playing now. They started a freshman and they went back, I think. But regardless, it's going to be at home. The crowd's going to be loud. We're going to be able to put pressure on that person, on that QB, and we're going to be able to come out. If we can come out early against them like we did against Oklahoma, we have a chance to kickstart that game and hopefully get a win. And that's what we want. And so final thought I would say is our defense needs to keep playing the way they're playing. We have depth. We have everything we need. That's a full show. We don't need anything more right now from them. But our offense, I would like to see some more explosive plays. I would like to see more consistency in the run game. And I would like to see getting the ball early on out of Lenoris's hands quicker, creating those simple plays for him to just kind of create confidence early in the game so he can go forward and have full confidence later in the game so we can make those long developing plays and just get him comfortable in the game. So that's what I have to say.
Garrett?
Yeah. And with that, guys, I think I have to hop real quick. Sorry.
He's got to go.
Wife to the airport.
Appreciate you, Scar, for hopping on. And again, we're going to try to get Scar out there. We might have to come up with like a...
Yeah. Get it going
we'll
on
get him in the coffee costume.
We'll figure a way out. We got a week or 2, 3 weeks. All right, boys. Go Cox.
All right, buddy. Yeah, I mean, to echo exactly what you're saying too. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we've got to use the tools in the tool bag. I mean, we've got really talented receivers. We got to get Rocket in position to win, and use Sellers correctly, and even Robbie Ashford as well. I mean, I don't love the situations we've had to put Robbie in to kind of come in and save the day, but I mean, he brings some stuff to the table. I think he's a little inconsistent here and there, but I mean, that guy knows how to win. We got to use the tools in the tool bag, and we've got to keep our defense from being banged up. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. Today was a good day. I'm not gonna sound like it sucks. Looking at the schedule going into it, this was the game I was really concerned about. Now, granted, Oklahoma turned out to be a different team than what we thought, but I think Oklahoma also realized why us SEC people complain constantly about how much this conference sucks. I think Oklahoma's really had to realize like they're going to be banged up. It's not we don't have a whole lot of Kansases in this conference. But no, this was a good win, and I know Shane's having a great day winning at Oklahoma. I feel like he probably got a little bit of y'all should have hired me kind of moment Saturday, which I think was really good for him. But yeah, we gotta get it all figured out. You know what I mean? Yeah, winning is always nice, but I think it was Saban said winning gets in the way of greatness or wherever the phrase is. These wins have been really good, but we gotta put all together. And like a couple people have said, we can't waste this. This could be one of the best defenses Carolina's ever had together, and you can't say that lightly. But this defensive line by itself is so freaking good. We can't waste that opportunity. You know, still there, bud. Maybe it's just me. Well, thank you guys for being here. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the O line as well. I mean, I know that we still have a situation where we've got a freshman tackle out there kind of winging it. And as a guy who played as a freshman, y'all, there are a few O linemen in the world who can go into the SEC and be great. And that dude is playing out of his mind, but he's still playing in the SEC. That is a nightmare. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, roll the pocket out's a really, really good one. But I mean, even in that regard, do a lot of stuff, do a lot more stuff with Rocket. And I think that might be the main reason why we've been doing a lot of stuff with the screens is to try to take the pressure off the old line. But like someone else said too, that's not 3rd and 18. That's a terrible time to. It's a terrible time to think that the screens are going to be the best thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna hop off as well because I've got a screaming baby in the background. I don't know what happened to our boy Yuva. I guess he got called away or his phone died. Who knows? But all right, I appreciate Gamecock family. Go drink.
All right, sorry everybody, had some technical difficulties. We're back on here. Lost Garrett though, so sorry for the delay. But bottom line is this: yeah, South Carolina, they're able to get the win today. Defense did exactly what they needed to do. They set the tone early, forcing those 3 turnovers on those first 3 drives, 2 defensive touchdowns, made the offensive job a little bit easier. Even though, as we said multiple times during the game, on both social media as well as on the Insiders Forum on Gamecock Central, you would have liked to have seen South Carolina do something offensively as far as staying ahead of the sticks, being able to sustain drives. They protected the football. You try to look at it and try to take some good away, but at the same time, too, as we mentioned throughout this post-game show, you still have a lot of questions about this offense. And the fact that you do, after 3 games after that first bye week, and you head into the second bye week now, you wonder what can change. What can change with 5 more games to go? Yes, you're 4-3, and we could play the shoulda, coulda, woulda game. Okay, what if they did this against Bama? What if this happened against LSU? Bottom line is you're 4-3. You're 4-3, and you have 5 more opportunities, 5 more guaranteed opportunities. So I'm going to be interested to see what South Carolina is able to do as they come out of this second bye. Again, appreciate everyone that tuned in today. It was fun to do this. It's been quite some time. It was fun to do this, but again, I was off today. I had a chance to be back at my high school, emceed an event today. I was headlined by Boston College head coach Bill O'Brien. He was inducted, so it was cool to be up there, and that gave me an opportunity to get my butt right back home to watch South Carolina, and I'm glad I was able to get right back to the home. I'm sure many of you were happy to get right back home and watch the beginning of the game because before you knew it, South Carolina was up 21-0. Enjoy your Saturday, everybody. If you're out in Norman, enjoy your time out there in Oklahoma and safe travels back to the Carolinas or wherever you'll be traveling back to. And hopefully we'll be doing one of these again very soon. I miss all you guys. And again, enjoy this win. No need to mix in a water tonight. And be sure to follow Gamecock Central for the latest on all your Gamecock news. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody.